To all of you, Ana Principi, I'm the Undersecretary of Institutional Relations and International Cooperation at the National University of La Plata. And I would like to welcome you all to this, the third conference we are holding as part of this new joint project between the USA and Argentina. Share dialogues on gender, ethnicity, geopolitics, history, and memory. The project is one of the beneficiaries of the US Embassy in Argentina's grant program for cooperation and exchange projects. The University of La Plata is extremely grateful to the Embassy for choosing and sponsoring this series of conferences. I particularly like to thank the Assistant Cultural Officer of the US Embassy in Argentina, Mr. Michael McLean, and the specialist Nori Cerdá and Giselle Dubinsky for all their support and hard work during the preparation process. At these events, 22 professors from the USA and Argentina will discuss and call into question the connections, intersections, and points of contact between concepts such as ethnicity, class, feminism, testimonial literature, translation, decolonial turn and language teaching, geopolitics, history, and memory. At today's session, we'll hear from Dr. Marcelo Raimundo and Dr. Jorge Troisi Melean, the conference called Cabecita, Negra, a crossroad among ethnicity, class, and populism. Dr. Marcelo Raimundo received his PhD in history at University of Buenos Aires in 2014. He is full professor in the history department of the National University of La Plata from 2006, where he teaches on Argentine and United States labor history, aspects of history teaching, and the use of computer technology in history research and teaching as well. He specializes in contemporary social and political history, specifically post-1955 labor and political union militancy in Argentina. He is researcher at Instituto de Investigaciones en Humanidades y Ciencias Sociales and has published numerous articles on political and ideological radicalization of Peronism and Argentina working class history. And Dr. Jorge Troisi Melean received his PhD in Emory University. He has published several books on art and articles on global history, both in Europe and in the Americas. Dr. Troisi has worked as an election monitor for the Carter Center in Latin America and Africa. The Canadian, the Israeli, and the Taiwanese government also sponsored him. He is a reader of history journals in different countries. He was visiting professor at different universities in US, Paraguay, and Trinidad and Tobago. He's tenured track professor and researcher at National University of La Plata, where he's leading a project on 19th century discourses across the Atlantic. So thank you, Dr. Jorge Troisi, Dr. Marcelo Raimundo, and we are ready to learn.
Thank you, Ana Sofía. Thank you, the American Embassy and the Facultad de Humanidades from the Universidad Nacional de La Plata. Today, Professor Marcelo Raimundo and me, we have prepared a class on the different tones of ethnicity in the most important political movement of Argentina ever. As you know, Latin American studies are focused in the US mostly about Mexican history, and from Mexican history, the most important topic is the Mexican Revolution. But when we talk about Argentina, the first topic, the first focus is always Peronist. People in the US, in the same way as people in Argentina, we are trying to understand and we are trying to explain, we are trying to discuss about this political movement, this political party, this political identification or identity in the case of today, we are going to share with you, with Professor Raimundo, the crossroad between ethnicity and Peronism. So we choose one strong word or two strong words that are part of this idea of the relationship between the ethnical identity of Peronists and the idea of race. Those two words are Cabecita negra. During this this speech, this talk, we are going to see what is to be a Cabecita negra and how the idea of Cabecita negra was built. So from here, I'm going to share with you different slides so that we can understand this process. As in the last class, I will make some breaks, small breaks during the talk to allow you to make comments or orally or by YouTube or by Zoom. And we are going to discuss at the same time we are giving the talk, so as to make it more dynamic. So I'm going to share from now. Is it okay? Okay, thank you. So Cabecita negra, a crossroad, as we said, among ethnicity, class, and populism. As you know, this is the third class. And so we are going to make some connections also with the last two classes about race in Argentina and blackness, and the idea of Christopher Columbus and the construction of the myth of the hero. But let's move to something that almost from present day. Okay, last year in June, President Fernandez, in a talk, he expressed an idea that came at least from 1 century before, the idea of Argentines' descent from ships. And he depicted in a speech, talking also about, not only about Argentinians, but as Mexicans, as Indians, and as Brazilians, came in from the jungle, okay? Where this idea came from? When it's also President Macri, for his inauguration speech, he also spoke about immigration. Argentina has migration from different parts of the world, but he only mentioned European migration. So there's an idea of Argentina, we were been talking about that from the first talk, about being or showing the world as a white country, okay? It's a phenomenon that only in the last 20, 25 years is trying to reverse. So it's not the case as the rest of the Latin American countries. The dominant Latin American paradigm talk about mestizaje, okay? So the idea of new racial mixture between Europeans and different sexes or ethnicities from different parts of the world. The first new during the late 19th century and the first decades of the 20th century, the idea of the new nations of Latin America, the idea of the state building, was an idea of trying to show the countries as white, all of them. So it was at the end of 19th century that there appeared the idea of the problem. el problema indio, el problema negro. Okay, the problems. Okay, Ana Sofía.
No, yes. ¿Puedes ponerlo en presentación? Así se ve más grande la letra.
Okay, yes, of course.
Oh, great. Sorry.
Okay. Is that okay? Perfect. So we have this idea of not only white Argentina, 19th century, white Brazil, white Mexico, white Chile, white Uruguay. All the countries try to show themselves as white countries for many reasons. Of course, there's a racist and scientific idea of whiteness, okay? But also it was a way to attract migrants from Europe and to attract capital investments from Europe, okay? So it was this idea based on pseudo-scientific support that these countries were trying to show. This idea was connected to the idea, as I said, of the Indian problem or the black problem. The black problem was from Brazil, the Indian problem, for example, for Bolivia or for Mexico. In the case of Argentina, it appears to be, it's part of the myth, the Argentine myth, as a white country without problems, in the sense of showing itself as a total white country. So there was an idea of national identity with exclusion for all the countries. That started to change in the 1910s in Mexico with the Mexican Revolution. We mentioned in the last class the idea of Vasconcelos, of the cosmic race, the raza cósmica, the mestizo, this idea of the new racial mixture that made Mexico better than it was before, or better than all the other countries in Latin America, because it is the perfect mixture between an Aboriginal past and a European past. That makes the best race ever, the mestizo, the raza cósmica. In Brazil, we have a similar idea for the 1930s, okay? During the time of Getúlio Vargas, the Varguismo, there's a new construction of the national identity, making the mixture between the European past and the African past. So that made Brazil a new racial identity, the racial identity of mulatto, that we mentioned also last week. In the case of Argentina, apparently, but we are going to see that during this talk, there's no mestizo construction. There's only the idea of whiteness. We are going to see how this idea was reviewed during the 1930s, the 1940s, and the 1950s. Okay, so the intellectuals in Argentina, they reject the sort of hybridity that we mentioned in both for Mexico and for Brazil, and instead they constructed national identities that were exclusionary, okay, of all the non-European components of the identity, just as in the United States, okay? The only mixture that they could count was the mixture that followed European migration. So in the United States, we have an identity based on the idea of melting pot, and it's more or less the same idea in Argentina, the crisol de razas, the crucible of races. It's more or less the same idea of melting pot, okay? This melting pot or this crisol de razas came from like a soup among Spaniards, Italian, and other immigrant groups
that fused in a new nation, but European groups, not other groups. Okay, so this marginalized Argentinians of indigenous and African descent, and eventually erased them from national identity. Okay, I see we have 4 chats. Okay, I'm gonna read one. Okay, oh, okay. No, it was you, Anna. Okay, good. So this is the idea that both Macri took for his inaugural speech, talking only about European migration as part of the Argentine identity, and again Fernandez, okay, last year when he was trying to convince Spain to support Argentina, for the debt with the IMF. Let's see, I can change. Okay. White Argentina, the context of the turn of the century. Historians of the Argentine social question have tended to identify races as an aristocratic prejudice, which it is. But it also has a crucial role, the idea from liberal reformers and even socialists that share a common and modern secular outlook toward the social question. The social question at the beginning of the 20th century was connected to ethnicity, okay? And they want to solve it. The idea of a problem of poverty connected to blackness and Aboriginal people, okay? It was an idea of a scientific regulation of racial purity, okay? So this pseudo-scientific discourse also support the idea of white Argentina, as it was a common idea in most of the countries in Latin America, as we said. Okay. Let's take a look to migration statistic in Argentina. In the first one, we see for the country, and in the second one for the AMBA, which is Buenos Aires and Great Buenos Aires. Take 1 second, okay, 10, 15 seconds. On the left chart, we can see the different census in Argentina from the first one until the 1991. And we can see the non-native population in Argentina in percentages. We jump from 12% to almost 1/3 of all the people being foreigner at the beginning of the First World War. And from there, okay, the percentages were going down. In the case, let me check. In the case of the AMBA, we can see how foreign migration was going down, okay, in Buenos Aires and Great Buenos Aires from almost 50% in 1869, going and keeping that 50% for at least 60, 70 years, and going down, starting again by the First World War, okay, until the 1960s. In the same way, we can see the internal migration, okay, which was only in the 1870s, 3%, okay, going up and up and up and growing permanently, okay, until we have in the 60s more than 1/3 of all the people in Buenos Aires coming from all the provinces, and only 42 of the people, always is between 40 and 50% people born in Buenos Aires or Great Buenos Aires that are in the city or in the surroundings. look at the phenomenon, the jump between the 1930s and the 1940s, when internal migration jumped from 12% to 29%. Okay, so it more than doubled. It goes 2.5 times in 10 years, 11 years. Okay, these are the worker families that we imagined at that time. Okay, different worker families. We have a picture in color, a picture black and white, but this is the idea that we construct about working families. Okay, or working migrants, but these also are migrant workers that we never imagine at first. Okay, we don't have it in our ideas, at least at the beginning. If we don't stop and think about it, we also construct in our minds, okay, a stereotype of workers moving. Okay, let's take a look to the map of Argentina in different times. The first one is about Aboriginal people in Argentina, okay? Covering, of course, all the country. And then in the second map on the right, we have the 1914 census. In terms of European born, we have more than 40% of European born in the provinces of La Pampa, Buenos Aires, Santa Fe, Santa Cruz, and Tierra del Fuego. Okay, they are between 10 and 20 in provinces of Córdoba and Rio Negro. And as we can see from this map, we have between 0 and 4% in the provinces that we call it the North or Northwest. Okay, the provinces of Jujuy, Los Andes at that time, which is the part of the province of Salta and Catamarca, Santiago del Estero, and La Rioja, and almost 5 to 10% in provinces as Tucumán or Salta. And this is the new country, okay, from the Great Depression in the 1930s. We have a great migration from these provinces, the provinces that we have here, La Rioja, Catamarca, Santiago del Estero, from the north and northwest to the AMBA, to the Buenos Aires and Great Buenos Aires area, okay? To the same provinces, more or less the same provinces that were receiving European migration until the 1920s. Now they are receiving people from the provinces that were not receiving European migration. Is that clear, more or less, in this maps? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Questions, comments? I don't know if we have. We are okay, Anna?
Yes, so we have like 20 seconds of delay, but I think we're okay.
That's I will wait.
The maps are great, really great. It's so clear.
Yes.
When you
They're very clear, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show them again so as we can see this idea. Okay. In the first map, we can see on green, this is the new area that was part of the south it was a portion of what it was going to be the Argentine territory that the Spaniards never conquered. It was only with the idea of the conquest of the desert when the Argentine army invaded that region. Okay. Okay. So
there are no questions so far.
No questions. Okay, so we can move. Thank you, Anna. Okay. And now this new phenomenon, the phenomenon of October the 17th, 1945. Okay. We have newspapers from that time, Platense's newspaper, about how they saw the idea of October the 17th, and pictures from that time. So these migrants that we can see here were moving as a result of the problems created by the Great Depression in the 1930s. Okay, the liberal democracy of that time was destroyed, not only in Argentina, but in most of the Western world, as a result of the crisis of the 1929. The international market started to have real problems. And as a result of those problems, the economy of Argentina, based on the export of commodities like beef, like wheat, like corn to Europe, that economy entered in a phase of crisis. Okay, so Argentina, as most of the countries in Latin America, had to find an alternative to that model of exporting commodities. And that model is the industrialization by substitution of imports, the ISI. And those new factories were in this region of Buenos Aires, Córdoba, Santa Fe, the region that started to attract people from the interior. Okay, those people apparently, there are different theories, were supporting Perón in October the 17th on 1945, that was in jail as a result of his activities as Secretary of Labor of the regime that took the government in 1943. So there was a huge mobilization of people from different parts of the country to the most important places or squares in the most important cities in Argentina. In this case, the most important by far was the mobilization of people to Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires, coming not only from Buenos Aires, but from Great Buenos Aires and from La Plata and Great La Plata, including probably the most iconic city that supported the October 17th, that is Berisso, very close to La Plata. Okay, we have, okay, no, Sofia is talking about the maps. Okay, so this is what we have on October 17th. For the inhabitants of Buenos Aires at that time, it was like something new was going on. And it was that some new people are entering the city. How was the reaction of people from Buenos Aires that had built this idea of white Argentina regarding those workers that were entering the city of Buenos Aires? This is what we are going to see right now. And here we have the idea of Cabecita Negra, okay? The Cabecita Negra is the hooded siskin. It's a small bird native to South America. Look at the picture, okay? You can see that his black head and yellow body. So these ideas, they connected the metaphor of this bird to this sector of society associated with people that have black hair and medium dark skin, generally of mestizo origin, belonging to the working class. It was coined in Buenos Aires during the 1940s, at the time of October the 17th, when a large internal migration started from the rural northern provinces toward Buenos Aires. Okay? And other large urban centers like La Plata, like Córdoba, like Rosario. The impetus for the migration was the newly created factory jobs that came about as a result of industrialization in Argentina, as we would say. Okay? So, we have this idea of Cabecita Negra. We have it in 1961. There's a poem by Germán Rosenmacher, Cabecita Negra, which depicted everyday races in Argentina with stark reality. The plot of Cabecita Negra is about a mid-class citizen, of course, from European, with European parents, okay, who resent the increasing internal migration of impoverished people from northern Argentina to Buenos Aires. Germán Rosenmacher wrote this poem during the time where Peronism was forbidden. It was not during the Peronist time, okay? So there was a marching troop of middle class fear of this new, that we can see in Cabecita Negra of Rosenmacher, and we are going to see in Cortázar, Casa Tomada, okay? Peronist movement took the idea of Cabecita Negra for the first time in the pro-Peronist newspaper El Laborista in 1948. Julián Centella took the idea of Cabecita Negra, okay? And he testified the very recent invention of the term Cabecita Negra, okay? So, and he mentioned the idea of Cabecita Negra was trying to define this migrant sector that came to Buenos Aires to differentiate from the traditional people coming from the campo, from the countryside, the hombre del campo criollo. So there were criollos coming to Buenos Aires, and there were Cabecitas Negras coming to Buenos Aires. There are two different things. And we're going to discuss also this idea of criollo, criollismo, criolls, and Cabecitas Negras. Casa Tomada, houses taken over. Cortázar, okay? The traditional way of seeing this phenomenon. Two middle-aged siblings, okay? One brother, one sister, unmarried, and without children, okay? They're living in a large Buenos Aires house that they inherit. They don't work, okay? They are landlords, or their parents were landlords, okay? We see that the sister is always in the house, and the brother sometimes is in the house and sometimes is looking for French literature. Okay, and the narrative is about something that happened that is taking over the house, usurped by a name unseen, noiseless, maybe imagined figures. Who's going on there? We don't know. But somebody or someone's, we don't know who, is taking over the house. Okay? It's this idea of collective invasion. I don't know if some of you saw this great interview to Cortázar in the 1960s in Spain. The interviewer asked Cortázar about Casa Tomada, and the interviewer said, of course, in Casa Tomada, Julio, you were trying to, it's a symbol of Peronism that we were trying to write about. And Cortázar said, no, I didn't try to do that. That was not my purpose. I didn't do it on purpose, but it's part of he said, of my sensitivity, of what he felt at that time, that he put it in words, something that it was not on purpose, but it was there in the atmosphere of Buenos Aires in the 1940s. Okay, so it's something like it was there, and he could put it in words in a wonderful narrative. Okay. Oh, we have a chat. We have a question. So yes, what we have?
Yeah, two long questions from, the slide before this one.
Okay. Oh, yes. I studied political, Angie Claros. I studied political participation of indigenous people here in the AMBA, and it shows exactly what you are saying. Migration from rural areas to the city, and they were discriminated against by the society. Yes, thank you, Angie. Yeah, thank you, exactly. Thank you for your comment.
And also,
yes.
Yes, there's another one from Juan Gudauskas. How did the other political movements, like the anarchists with their countershoots, interpreted or worked with this new wave of migration into the AMBA?
Okay. Thank you, Juan. The same way. To the left, the communists, and also the anarchists at that time, and the socialists, particularly the socialists that were reformers, they saw this movement, this new phenomenon in the same way as the elite. Because at the beginning, okay? Because they couldn't understand what's going on at that time. So it's going to be the Peronists that's going to divide everything. Okay, but until now we have the same ideas that are part of right and left wing. Okay, inside the socialist and the anarchist movement, the ones that saw the phenomenon in different way, they entered the Peronism. If they understood what's going on, they abandoned socialists or anarchists to enter the Peronism. They were attracted by Peronism. Those who understood the phenomenon in a different way from the elites. The ones that saw the phenomenon in the same way that as the elite remain in the anarchist movement or the socialist movement. Okay? The anarchists were not as powerful as they were by the 1910s or the 1920s. Okay. Okay, depiction of cabecitas. Look at the cartoon, okay? Aquí el diario dice que somos democráticos. Newspaper is saying that we are democratic. How come? Are we not Peronist? Okay, and look at the newspaper, it's upside down. So they are illiterate. They don't know how to read. They are illiterate. Okay, they were oscos y toscos. They speak differently. Wear blusas corraleras, and they are amazed by the tall buildings, the subways, Buenos Aires, the flashing illuminated sign, the constant coming and going of people that lay siege to our Calle Florida, the main street at that time in Buenos Aires. Okay, above all, the crucial marks of differentiation that define the cabecita for Centella, the one that depicted the cabecitas at that time, are racial and visual. The Juan, who is the butt of porteño joke, has piel cetrina, pómulos salientes, cabello lacio, aindiado. He looks like Indian, and he looks like black. Okay, this is the cabecita. This idea also of quemar el parquet, the idea of violation of the norms. The most pervasive of the urban legends is the idea that leyenda negra, the black legend, we talked last class of black legend, this is a different black legend, is the idea of migrants who break up the parquet flooring of their new houses to burn in the parrilla. Okay, while they're making the asado, they are using the parquet flooring, okay, that was part of the new houses that they took from the government, from Peronismo, okay, and they use it to make an asado. That idea dates back to the Peron era. Okay, and it's part of the idea of these people are violation the norm. They couldn't enter the city of Buenos Aires. Okay, they were there, okay, outside. We don't need to see them. Now that we see them, okay, that's the problem. What are you doing here? This is not the idea. You have to be outside the city. So at the same time, we have this new myth of quemar el parquet. They don't know what to do with the house. It achieves its effect of ordering, the idea of ordering, by explicitly referring the violation of norms of accepted urban behavior. There's a urban behavior, a white urban behavior that they couldn't follow. The working class. Okay? It's interesting, but the idea of quemar el parquet rarely mentions race, color, or phenotype. It's about the working class. Okay? They're burning the parquet flooring. It's an idea that remains even today. Okay, we have cabecita and cabeza.
Sorry, and the photo was Capusotto, wasn't it?
Yeah, the photo is Capusotto making joke of that myth, that urban myth, and put it upside down. Okay. Yes, I'm Peronista, and I will do an asado with the parquet flooring. But he put, of course, as Capusotto always does, he put the myth upside down, and he embraced the myth.
Right.
It's a wonderful picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the Peronist sign.
Yes.
Okay. The idea of cabecita and cabeza. Okay. Cabeza is a derivation of cabecita negra. We can hear it today. Okay. That appeared more recently in the last 20, 30 years. It's only in the 1990s that the idea of cabeza appeared. It tends to refer to someone from the countryside, simple and unsophisticated, but who lives in the city. Okay? So some young people still today are using this word to refer to someone who is undesirable, badly dressed, unpleasant. Okay? Someone who's not part of the correct style. Again, the violation of the norms. Okay? He or she doesn't understand. He's a cabeza, she's a cabeza. Okay? We were discussing with Marcelo, with Professor Raimundo, this idea of cabeza, and it was yesterday in most of the comments regarding the behavior of one player of Boca Juniors on Sunday. Okay, there was a Boca Junior player, Rojo, who after the game he was smoking after the game, and most of the comments said he's smoking because he's a cabeza, or he's a negro, or he's a negro. What else can we say? He's a cabeza. That's it. Okay, this idea remains today. And where there's no sanction, as the comments in the newspaper, without sanctions, we can see how all these racist ideas are there. Okay, when there's no somebody that can control the conversation. Okay, so this cat.
Sorry, you're mute.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So this idea of cabecita and cabeza is a cultural construct, overwhelmingly cultural construct. It's it has no precision geographically, but we can count it mostly about riojanos, salteños, tucumanos, santiagueños, jujeños, sanjuaninos. Okay, the people from the first maps that we were seeing, this migration from the Northwest and those provinces that didn't receive European migration. Okay. What's the difference between descamisado and cabecita? And this is a picture from October the 17th. Okay, they were using the place, which is to watch the water, to see the water flowing. They were using as a swimming pool because they don't know how to behave in the city. Okay, so the photographer took this picture on purpose with that cultural bias to show the porteño audience, the porteño readers, what these people are doing in the city. The city, the idea of the city and whiteness. Okay, the cabecita negra, it's a problematic and resistant discursive category. Oh, we have some questions or comments. Graciela Baum. This is the first one. Yeah. Cabeza is currently also used in reference to people of low intellectual competence, ignorant, or certain sharing common sense, regardless of origin or phenotype. Yes. Yeah. Cabeza or cabeza de termo. But totally, but it came from Cabecita Negra. It's a derivation of Cabecita Negra. Yes, thank you, Graciela. Okay, it came from the idea of Cabecita Negra, well, he's a cabeza. Pero no hay cabezas rubias, of course. There's no blonde cabezas. You will never say somebody is blonde and cabeza. So it has a racial meaning. Okay?
And a class meaning.
And a class meaning. Class, yes, of course. Class and race. Thank you. Yes. So, Cabecita Negra. Unlike many of the other terms that emerged in the 1940s to connote negatively Perón's working class supporters, Cabecita was not available for resignification. Peronists never took the Cabecita. It's interesting, okay? Descamisado, grasita, yes. We are descamisados. We are grasitas. I love the descamisados. I love the grasitas. There's nothing about I love the cabecitas negras. Okay, they were seized, the grasitas or descamisados, upon and incorporated into Peronist discourse. Not the idea of cabecita, but we are going to see the idea of negritud. Okay, they were semantically uncoupled from their original meanings and given positive connotations. Okay? And Graciela said, okay, right, thank you. So this is the idea of descamisados and cabecita. Evita's last public speech, okay? The speech that she was telling with Perón, the people of Argentina, that she was known to be a candidate. May the 1st, 1952. Probably the most important speech on radio ever. Okay. Perón explicitly recast the meaning of the category. ¿Acaso porque nosotros pensamos en la felicidad de nuestro pueblo? Because we think in happiness of our people, y por haber elegido como primera meta de nuestros afanes a los sectores más humildes de la nación, and because the most humble sectors of our nation are our goal, a quienes la vieja clase dirigente bautizó con el insulto glorioso de descamisados. To the humble people who the elite baptized as descamisados. Those people are our goal. So he turned back the idea of descamisados, and he embraced the idea of descamisados. Yes, we are descamisados. Yes, it's not that we are descamisados. We are leading for the descamisados. Okay, but there is no such comparable recasting for Cabecita Negra. The term does not appear in the public discourse of Perón, nor do we find it mentioned in Evita's speeches, which abound in the discursive embracing of the grasita and descamisado. Cabecita was by the early 1950s defined as anti-Peronist and anti-worker. Okay. All this became El Pueblo. This is what Graciela is saying. Graciela Bam. Thank you. Yes, it's El Pueblo in Perón discursive construction. Yes, El Pueblo are the descamisados. And it's the connection between the leader or the leaders and the descamisados, the pueblo, the people. Evita. Evita's famous bleached blonde, look at the picture of Evita here, appears on its surface to reflect a very different aesthetic. Look at Evita and the people. She's blonde, not like the others. Look at Evita. The contrast between Evita and the descamisados, here and here. Evita's self-presentation was deeply informed. She knew about the association between blackness and populism. Okay? Evita was an actress, as maybe most of you know, radio mainly, but also movie actress. She was brunette, and she had a public affair with Perón. But at that time, she was also casting a supporting role in the film La Cabalgata del Circo, and she had to dye her hair for that part. From that time, she became blonde. Okay, her blonde hair became a key element in her public image because it's a metaphor of her illegitimate birth and relative poverty to wealth and power. Symbolically, the transformation from humble brunette to prestigious and powerful blonde. So it remained the idea that to be successful, you need to be blonde, even in Evita. Okay? It's also, Evita looks artificial. It's also on purpose. Okay? Because it was like a halo. It's that identified wealth and social ascent to her blondness. It was theatrical. It was a performance also. And it has the two meanings, the meaning of being blonde and successful, but also the meaning of you people, not people in the terms of pueblo, but this society understands successful with blondness. So I'm blonde. So it's a very interesting, very complex play there to show her blondness as her metaphor of the Peronist ascent, and at the same time showing that this is the way society looks at to be blonde. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Comments or questions? Okay, of course. And Perón took his shirt out during the discourse. So the two things together. Okay, but this idea of descamisado is there, and the idea of the idea of aesthetical Peronism and ethnicity and class. Look again at the pictures. This is in the south with oil workers in Comodoro Rivadavia. Okay. And minors. Okay. This is the idea of descamisados too. The descamisados on May the 25th, on 25 de Mayo. They were there. Look at the color of the people. The shirtless workers who stormed the Plaza de Mayo on October 17, 1945 to protest the arrest of Perón. It was soon free, okay? But this is the idea. And this is the Cabildo also there. Because this is the Cabildo, which is the Cabildo for Argentina. This is the starting of a nation. So there's a restarting of the nation. It's May the 25th together with October the 17th in this image. And there's no people there because there's a new Argentina and there's a new May the 25th, October the 17th. Who are there? The descamisados. May and October. Okay. Peronist auto-identification. Okay. We have Eve de Bonafini. Piensan que los negros no tienen que existir. Against Larreta and Acuña during the discussion last year about closed schools. Okay. A los antiperonistas les molesta que el negro vaya a la universidad y piense. Okay, this idea of I'm peronista, I'm negro, Nancy Duplass. Okay, or Eve de Bonafini. On the other side, they don't recognize the negro, and we are negros. So at some point, not the first Peronists, but the different Peronists were turning the idea not of Cabecita, but yes of negro as part of the Peronist movement. And there's an association between negro and Perón. Okay. Look at this flag. We have the Argentine flag and we have the descamisado flag.
Right, it's a shirt.
This is a shirt flag, okay? Okay. I'm here doing the speech, but Professor Raimundo is with me. And so we are exchanging things, and he's always pointing me to make a better speech. So he's supporting me on the other side. Thank you. Okay, so look again at the, and we can see also the blackness, the mestizos, okay? We have a different Argentina from the construction of Argentina from the May the 25th. Okay. This is a new idea from a scholar, Carush, okay? He asked the question, how was it that words that had once been used to describe Afro-Argentinians came to be applied to Peronist workers? Okay? The word negro is a commonplace in everyday speech. Hateful insult and paradoxically as endowment, okay? So it has it's a paradox, negro. It's a very complex. So on one side, it's an insult, but on the other side, it can be, oh, you're a negro, I'm a negro, we're negros.
Negri, yeah, we are friends, we are.
Negro, que se negri,
yes. Yeah, Erika talked about that too.
Yes.
With the complexity of the word.
Yeah. And we discussed with Erika and with Professor Raimundo, with Marcelo, we discussed this idea. And of course, it's different when you identify yourself as being Afro, like Erika, the experience of her being part of that identification and the things she heard is different for us. As when we go to the United States and they told us, oh, you are Latino or you are Hispano. What does it mean that? Well, am I what? I never think about it. So is this the same thing that happened to her in Argentina? I'm a Hispano. I don't understand. This is the way you see me and you put me in that category. Well, that's the complexity of blackness in Argentina, or of being negro, or what is to be negro, negri, negrita, all these things together, the complexity that we were discussing, all these talks. So the insult, when it's an insult, also goes more to indigenous rather to African ancestors. Okay, we trace it to the Peronicera, as we are saying, and during his first 2 terms in office from 1946 to the coup d'etat in 1955, Peron built a powerful working class movement that challenged the nation's hierarchies and the national ethnical hierarchies. Okay, so the opposition of Peron created this idea in racial terms, labeling them as cabecitas negras, or simply negros. Okay, so the idea of negro and cabecita, we are trying to trace where it's coming from. By applying the term black to these largely mestizo migrants, okay, this elite defined a group of working class with the followers of Peron. And the anti-Peronists construct their own identity in both class and racial terms. We are middle class, we are white. You are working class, you are negro, you are cabecita. Okay? But Peronists responded by embracing the idea of cabecita, the idea of descamisado, after some decades, the idea of negro, okay? And also the idea of grasa, grasita, that is also there. Graciela has a question or comment. Here induced bluntness a challenge to status quo views on what el pueblo could achieve amid high-class whites? Yes, exactly that, Graciela. She induced bluntness as a challenge to status quo, the status quo views on what el pueblo could achieve amid high-class and whites. We can also be part of the elite. We can also be white, but we never be white. So I'm a theatrical white. That's the discourse of Evita in her image. So I will never be you because I don't want to be you, but I could be you, but I don't want to. So I'm sure you. I'm sure you that. Yes, it could be, but I don't want to. So I'm making a joke on what you are thinking is the best way to look.
And a statement as well.
And it's a statement, totally. Yes, Anna. It's a statement. Yes. It's a very strong one. Okay, this idea from Karush. So what Karush said, he's talking about the historical process complex and even positive depiction of Black people. He traced the idea of Blackness back to Martín Fierro. In 1872, most of the Argentinians know when the idea of vaca, the woman, a cow, she's a Black woman. And at that time, Martín Fierro, he fought against a Black guy and he killed him. He killed him. Sorry, he didn't kill her. In that image, Hernandez is showing, of course, racist tones, okay? Because Martín Fierro defeated the Black. But at the same time, he shows an Afro-Argentinian as human, which is important. Then we have, with the turn of the century, 20th century, we have different Afro-Argentinians. In Carnival, Black Candombe, Pepe Podestá in theater, Gabino Ezeiza, the Black Payador in tango. But it was in the 1930s an international boom with pseudo-African or African-derived musical genres. From Brazil to Cuba, the Brazilian samba, the Cuban son, the American swing, okay? Remember, in Germany, before the Second World War, all the people in Berlin's cabarets, they were dancing American swing. It was forbidden in Germany because it connected to Blackness. But there was a boom in the 1930s about African music, okay? in Argentina, the milonga, okay, the quicker tempo, the rhythm of milonga, the drums of milonga, okay, it shows some African features that make the milonga a logical choice to be part of that boom of African-derived musical genres. So, from the late 1930s, before Perón, there was a renewed interest in Afro-Argentine culture. Before Peronism, that also influenced radio, theater, and cinema. There was this idea, strange idea of African roots, but they mix it with the milonga. You have questions and comments, okay? And Ariel Ferreira, and when you are not negro, they call you negro de alma. Yes, yes. It's even worse because there's something negative as being negro. So no, sorry, you are not negro, you're negro de alma. Yes. Ariana Segal. So this is still not a clear understanding on where anti-Peronists got the term negro from. Yes, there is an understanding where they take the negro. Negro has always been related to the idea of backwardness, okay, from the late 19th century, or even from before. It's connected to slavery. It's connected to not being white, to not being proper for the city, to be uncivilized. That was the idea of European cultures from before. Okay, yes, to be negro has negative connotations, and that's where the anti-Peronists got the term negro from. Okay, now we are trying to explain how in the 1930s there was like a review of the category of being African. That was in some way this positive new tones of being African, what the Peronists took. And this is what we are trying to explain. And this is the Karush hypothesis. For example, in Brazil, in the 1920s, the Afro-Brazilian musicians were able to take advantage of the international vogue for blackness in the 1920s that came from the United States, improving their status and raising the prestige of their music. Okay, in Brazil, in the 1930s, some Afro-Brazilians took advantage of this international boom, this international trend regarding Afro music. By contrast, in Argentina, Black musicians were a visible but tiny minority. In this context, international trends had a very different impact than in Brazil. A minority with non-a-minority in Brazil. So the valorization of Afro-Argentine tradition was made less threatening in Argentina than in Brazil, because there were fewer than in Brazil. Okay, so it was like a recreation of a culture that had disappeared. Of course, it didn't disappear, but this is what people thought. Okay, so the absence of a large Black community meant that racial sense floated free of threat. So they were available for resignification. Okay, so there was this idea of sympathy for the suffering. Sympathy for the suffering Afro-Argentines of their past that could indicate sympathy for the Africans in the present. Alberto Castillo, again, okay, this idea of Milonga and Alberto Castillo, who eventually would become Peronist, performed his candombes with Afro-Argentine and Afro-Uruguayan dancers and drummers. Okay, so it was from Castillo before the Peronists and before this resignification of the idea of pueblo or people. The real Argentina is not the country of the rich kids who dance the foxtrot, but negros, both black and white, who invented the tango. So you have the foxtrot for the rich kids, and we have the negros doing the tango. I witnessed the same distinction in the 1990s and the 2000 between in the 1990s, supporters of Soda Stereo and supporters of Los Redonditos de Ricota. I'm a supporter of Redonditos de Ricota. I'm the people. You are middle-class urban guys that love Soda Stereo. We are the real Argentinians. Okay? We are the negros that love Los Redonditos. We are the real. You are not the real. It's the same distinction made in 1930s. So the Peronist rhetoric echoed the populist and national discourse that was available there. Okay? And two new messages. Beatriz, is there an explanation of the contradiction I have always found between Eva, always dressed by great designers with very expensive jewels surrounded by very poor people? Yes, that's the contrast, exactly. This is a theatrical way, it's a performance of showing that contrast, showing on one side how is seen the success in a society, and at the same time seeing Eva as somebody who could move upwardly in the society. So that's the image for all the people. If Eva could do it, you can do it. So that's the contrast. It's complex, okay? Because at the same time, well, but you are showing that we are the people and we are here. We are not moving. Yes, but there's a possibility of moving upward. And it's there. It's on purpose. Graciela, Negro from colonial times referred to the slaves brought from Africa and their inferiority. So the genealogy of the term was first publicly disrupted by Perón. No, we are saying that that was before. We're saying that it was in the 1930s, before Perón, that Perón took it. And it was part of this international trend, the boom of Afro music from the United States, from Cuba, from Brazil in the 1930s. So it was before Perón. There's another.
Thank you, Beatriz, for your
thank you.
questions
yes,
today. And
yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being there and for making such good questions. Thank you. So Alberto Castillo used the term negro before Perón and during Perón. So in their appeals to the symbolism of color, the Perons were making use of an existing discourse rather than inventing a new one. The populist association of terms like negro precede Peronism by at least a couple of decades. Color words like morocho and negro already referred to that phenotype, lower class status, and a counter-hegemonic national identity. It was only natural for elites to apply them to the dark-skinned lumpen that had invaded the city. But they were there before. Perón, okay, they used the discourse. They reviewed the idea of the elite. They put it upside down, but it was there. Okay. Okay, so also we have to, there was no, is there any message? I don't know, right?
No, there is an image, yeah, the slide is okay, but Beatriz also has another question, I don't know.
Okay. I cannot see it. Could you
yes,
read it?
of course. Do you know that the high society of those days stopped dressing up as an expression of Eva being all dressed up?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it was a counter-reaction to how Eva dressed. Yes.
Interesting.
Eva was always the center of polarization.
Yeah.
Okay, and she plays with that contrast. So the more reaction she created, the better for her image and for her purpose.
Right.
So she played. So if she changed the way they're addressing the elites, that was better for the idea that Evita was creating. Okay. And there's also an idea that Marcelo is making me remind it. The idea of the October the 17th was also a candombe. The October the 17th was the candombe entering the city, the blacklist entering the city, entering Buenos Aires. Okay, so the candombe was controlled in theaters or in the street during carnival, but now it's not carnival. It's not in the theater. Now it's in the city. Again, you are violating the rules. Okay, this is also October the 17th. Okay, and we have more questions, right?
Graciela is saying thank you. Now I get it. Thank you, Graciela, as well.
Okay.
And Beatriz explains how she knows. My mom worked for a great fashion company, and it was notorious the way society reacted. That is why I know. Interesting.
Yes, totally.
Yes, Graciela.
Some years ago, a professor from the United States went to University of La Plata because she was working. She didn't finish, but she was working at that time with the idea of Harrods. The Harrods in Buenos Aires was the first Harrods outside UK, outside Great Britain. And how did Harrods behave during the time of Eva Perón? So we had a lot of people who for the first time went to Harrods. But they went to Harrods, they had coffee at Harrods, they eat, but they couldn't afford or they couldn't buy the dresses in Harrods. They took copies of that dresses and they made it at home. So again, the idea of performance, the idea of I'm not you, but I can behave like you, and I'm it's also the idea of simulacra. I can imitate you, because I'm following you, but also because I'm playing with you. It's not simple. There are all these contradictory ways of playing, behaving, and showing them, Evita and the others.
And there's a new message
From Graciela.
Okay.
Eva
Yes.
also was stating her choice to remain on this side of the line, wasn't she?
Again, I'm sorry.
Eva also was stating her choice to remain on this side of the line, wasn't she?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes. And also, sometimes this the way Evita dressed had to be reinterpreted or reviewed. In the 1970s, the left, the Peronist left, that the left that was Peronist had to found pictures of Evita not dressing as a member of the elite. Okay, and it was hard for them to find those pictures. So, have you seen this picture of Evita like more casual? This is the Evita of the left of the 70s. That's the Evita Montonera. So they took also the critics from the elite that were dressing in the other way. So it's always go back and forward. It's a very interesting play of Evita dressing. Okay. More questions over here?
No, we are good. Yeah, that's all.
We have here Castillo and this idea of negro that was before the parents. Okay. So, and this idea also of Evita regarding the urban middle class and the working class. So, the working class in the 40s and 50s, the way that Evita dressed was not a problem for them. It was a problem for the middle class that supported Evita in the 70s. Okay. Oh, okay. I lost it. Okay. Okay. Criollismo, the idea of Creoles. The idea of criollismo was before Perón, okay? It was from more or less at the same time. In the last talk, we were talking about Columbus and the idea of Dia de la Raza, okay? In the 1910s, Adamowski worked with this idea of a new concept of criollismo as the way of showing how an Argentinian should be to the migrants that came from Europe. Okay, we are here gauchos. We are here. You have to behave in this way because we are this Creoles, criollos. The idea of gauchos judíos, Jewish gauchos. Okay, showing that okay, we have in order to adapt to be Argentinians, we need to be Creoles, criollos. So as immigrants flooded into Argentina at the turn of the 20th century, urban residents embraced criollismo, the nativist celebration of rural tradition. It's another construction, of course. Okay, so Peronists refused to racialize its form of addressing workers in the Peronist decade. Okay, this idea of negro and Peronist is not from the first Peronists. Okay, because they didn't want to embrace the category of negro, but the idea of criollo, which is the mestizo idea. So it was an ethnic language, and it's the version of mestizo that we have in Mexico for the Mexican Revolution, the idea of raza cósmica mestizo, or the mulatto in Brazil. It exists in Argentina. It's the criollo. That's the mestizo from the frontier, the gaucho from the frontier. It's the new idea. This is the new Argentinian that Peronists took from the beginning of the 20th century, and that made it the new Peronist. During the 5-year plan, the Plan Quinquenal, we can see here a criollo, which is a mestizo in this picture. Okay, it's not white, it's not negro, it's not indio, it's criollo. It's like the cosmic race of the Peronists. The cosmic race for Mexican Revolution, criollo for Peronism. Okay, so Perón's continuations of policy established since the early 1940s that mandated use of folklore materials in teacher training and in school textbooks. We have folklore, and no folklore. It's another invention, the invention of tradition. Okay, the tradition of folklore, folk. The Peronist government also continued the policy of fixing quotas in radio for playing the national music. There were quotas. You have to play national, what it's understood to be national music. Okay, look again at the 5-year plan, explicitly includes support for this nationalization of Argentine culture. Look, we were talking last class, okay? From the October the 12th, the Día de la Raza. Día de la Raza, okay? Columbus Day, Day of the Spanish race. Now is Day of the Criollo race, the October the 12th. It's not the Spanish, but we came from the Spanish, okay? But we are Criollos now. This is the new Columbus Day. So remember when we were talking about the 6 different Columbus, we have the 7th, the Criollo, okay? And here we have the construction of folklore in Argentina. Santiago del Estero. Remember Santiago del Estero? In the first map that we have, it didn't receive European migrants. It was one of the main provinces that sent people to the AMBA, to Gran Buenos Aires, and Great Buenos Aires. Okay? So, Ricardo Rojas, from Guachamosa, construct this idea of folklore, bringing Criollo culture to the core of national culture. And at the same time, dissociating that folk culture from any claim for ethnic autonomy. Santiago is therefore constructed at that time as a fundamental moral reservoir for the nation. It has preserved its true values intact while the nation lost its way in la etapa de traición. La etapa de traición, the liberal democracy. Okay? So, we go back to Santiago. Now the nation that lost its way is returning. It's also the idea of returning. Okay? Returning. Not to the period pre-immigration. the original Santiago. If the authoritarian rulers in the 60s were trying to go back to the Argentina of the pre-1930s, this contractor of Santiago del Estero was trying to go back to the Argentina before the immigration era. Okay, now the nation that lost its way is returning from the periphery, its post cities, its frontier, to recover the lost ideals and values of its youth reserved in its historical core, Santiago del Estero, and its culture. The culture of folklore, the folklore de Santiago del Estero, now the real Argentina. These recovered values will then lead to their natural culmination in the political program of Peronism. Perón's visit to Santiago enables to observe the complex construction from within state discourse of the constitutive elements of Santiaguenidad. The Santiago is long-suffering, honest, and simple. That's the people. Okay? So we have the criollo, but we have the Santiagueños, the real people, the humble, the moral reservoir, the origin. Then we have the criollos, but the origin, the purity of Argentina is there in Santiago del Estero. This is a construction that came with the folk music, the old folk music, the first wave of folk music. It was not there forever. It was not there in 1810s, in the 1820s. Okay, they were constructed. And to finish, last week, okay, with the census, we have for the first time this question. ¿Se reconoce indígena o descendiente de pueblos indígenas o originarios? ¿De qué pueblo indígena u originario? ¿Habla y o entiende la lengua de ese pueblo indígena o originario? 3 questions about First Nation, Aboriginals, and 1 question about African ethnicity. ¿Se reconoce afrodescendiente o tiene pasados negros o africanos? Okay, it's how, again, what we started to see with Erika, the first talk. How you see yourself, not how the others are seeing you. It's not from the person from the census that you are what you are. But at the same time, you have to answer somebody who's there. So I don't know, it's going to be part of future research if the answer is different, if you have somebody at your place and you have to answer somebody, okay, in presence that you are Black or not, or First Nation or not, and if the answer was different, if you answer it by remote, in the virtual way. I don't know. That's going to be part of, that's going to be future research for some people. So Argentina's African heritage is there in the new census. Conduct census in its Afro community for the first time. Asking citizens about their ethnic identity in what scholars hope will be a change from Eurocentric views on how the nation was built. In the previous census, in 2010, there was a question about Afro-Argentine identity as a sample in some of the forms, but not in all. Now, it is one of the 61 questions in all. The 2010 census record that nearly 150,000 people perceived themselves as Afro-descendants, but it was 10 times less than the estimate made by community leaders. They thought before the census that they were going to find 1.5 million, it was only 150,000. Let's see what we have from this last census now. And from today or yesterday, depending if you are there or here, we have the new bills of pesos with, for the first time, an Afro-descendant in one of the bill denominations. Okay, I think that it's the 500 denomination bill. The new one is going to have an Afro-descendant. Okay, now times to discussion, to debate, to questions, comments. We are here to discuss it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you both for sharing your ideas, and thank you, Jorge, for presenting this impeccable research. Yeah, all in one PowerPoint from like centuries ago to today, to yesterday. It is very interesting, the question about the languages. The First Nation were waiting for that question in order to, of course, to know more about themselves. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, because it has to be implemented in schools, the local schools or provincial schools. That idea, yes, totally.
Yeah. So, are there any questions? We are waiting. Yes, there are.
Okay, so we have Sofia Matassa, right? That's the first one, Anna?
Yes.
Okay. This is the first time I've heard about this topic. This whole seminar was a great opportunity as an introduction. So thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sofia. Thank you very much. Angie, Claros. It's very interesting. As far as I know, Santiago del Estero doesn't recognize itself as indigenous, but they speak Quechua Santiagueño. They are the real ones. But they are embracing the mestizaje. Yes. Yeah. This is the idea. It's always plain. There's also a construction of being Quechua Santiagueño or mestizo or indigenous or okay. They are all different construction and it depends on the different context. Yes. Rocío Miranda Rositi, muchísimas gracias. Una charla muy interesante y sumamente necesaria. Thank you, Rocío. Ariana Segal, could you explain a bit more about la etapa de traición and how they used that term at that time? Yes, la etapa de traición, it's the parents, they constructed the idea of the infamous decade, the 1930s, as the idea of a country that went that was trying to connect it more to England or to foreign powers than to remain Argentinian. So that's why they were traitors. They were traitors to the national identity, trying to ask, particularly England, to remain as a trade ally of Argentina. And the event is the Roca-Runciman Pact in 1932, where they were trying to keep selling beef to England while England was only traded with Commonwealth countries. And so Argentina was asking in a way to be part of the colonial empire of England in order to keep selling beef to Great Britain. And who were doing that movement the landlords. Okay, and why was England stopped buying Argentine beef? Because of the result, as a result of the Great Depression. All the countries started to see their own markets, and the international market was broken at the time. Okay, thank you, Ariadna. Angie Claros, the topics of this class were very interesting. Thank you so much. Great, thank you. Homero Lanzavecchia, Afro y Mujer, María Remedios del Valle. Yes, of course, María Remedios. Thank you, Homero. Erica went to Universidad de La Plata in 2016 to make a presentation on María Remedios del Valle. So we were discussing María Remedios at least for the last 7 years in La Plata. So it's very important to you to understand that the real color of the people doesn't matter here. What does matter is the social conflict that keeps class and racial categories, and they put it together. So it's part of the class struggle to make racist comments on the others, and they were used on both sides. Okay, so it's very interesting to see the interplay between class and ethnicity there, and to see how it's played by the opposite sides. Okay, this is one of the things we need to keep thinking. Thank you so much. Very interesting topic. Okay, thank you, Ariadna. Ariel Ferreira, muy interesante la resignificación de la imagen de Eva por la izquierda peronista. La Evita Montonera. Thank you, Ariel. Yes. Yes, that's true. Thank you. This is a work of Professor Raimundo. That he's working on that thing. Okay. 2 more. Is there any appropriation of the idea of Cabecita Negra by the labor movement from anarchists or communists, for example? Cabecita Negra for anarchists or communists? Marcelo, what do you think? ¿Hay alguna apropiación del anarquismo, del comunismo, de la idea de Cabecita Negra? We can translate it. We don't know, right? That.
Yes. No hay documentación al respecto. No, puede ser una hipótesis a trabajar, pero
there's no evidence, right, of that. Okay.
No
evidence of the appropriation of the
no, y son ideologías muy en la tradición occidental europea.
On the whiteness, yeah.
Generalmente más desde el peronismo de izquierda es la reivindicación.
Okay. Oh, and because we are talking about US and Argentina, I recommend you to read the article from New York Times on Monday about Haiti. Haiti, it's a research from 6 journalists from New York Times that were trying to see the debt of Haiti with France after the independence of Haiti from France, and how France keep making Haiti paying that debt. That was one of the causes why Haiti is such a poor country. Juan Gutauskas, I remember Carlos Menem having a phrase about how the blacks were excluded from the political elites. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was proud of his ancestry. Yeah, Carlos Menem, thank you, Juan. at some point, a journalist asked him about races in Argentina, and he said, no, we don't have that problem at all. We don't have it.
Menem es descendiente de árabes,
Yes,
sirios. No tiene descendencia, no tiene descendencia de acá. Ascendencia, perdón.
No. He's a Syrian descendant. Yes.
Él viene todo de una corriente de árabes que se peronizan en los años 40 y
Yes.
que son de la zona del noroeste del país.
Yes.
La Liga Árabe Peronista le llamaban,
Yes.
en los 60.
Yes. It's a long tradition of politicians from the old Turkish Empire, not only in Argentina, but also in Ecuador, from Lebanon and Syria. Ecuador gave 2 presidents from that area, and Argentina 1. Okay, but he mentioned in an interview that Argentina has no problems of races. Okay. More questions or comments so far? Anna, we're okay? Okay. Well, Marcelo, I don't know if you want to close, que querés terminar de alguna manera. Okay, thank you. Well, this is the last of the 3 talks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ana, for all your effort. Thank you, Fernando. You were doing a great job making us very comfortable here. I know it was hard for all of us, but I think the product is very good.
Yeah.
Gracias a todos también.
No, thank you, Marcelo, and thank you, Jorge. Yeah, and thank you, Fernando. He works all along with me at the international office, and thank you, everybody out there in the video and the YouTube channel for the great questions and the great answers and comments and reflections. And so thank you again, Dr. Jorge Troisi Melean. Thank you again, Dr. Marcelo Raimundo. And thank you, all of you. And see you perhaps tomorrow with feminism translation and that, or perhaps on September, October, and November with the other cycles. Thank you. Thank you, Angie, Ariel, everybody. Thank you.
Gracias.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again. See you.